Toda, Miriam. Yeah, Toda. Thank you to IJS, to Harry. Thank you. Yes, I can feel your smile as well. Oh, it's so nice to be back with all of you at IJS. I missed you. It's been a while. One piece that I must share, one of the and I just said this to Harry, to Miriam and Harry. When I travel and I walk into a room, comes up to me almost every time. Oh, you're the Yiscah from IJS. So I hope to connect in one way or another here in Yerushalayim, there, out there in the world. Shalom to all of you. Thank you for carving out time in your busy day to spend some time with us here at IJS, our daily sit. We can just really treat ourselves to intentional breath awareness, feeling life move in us, through us, back out into the universe. I'd like to share a teaching, actually two teachings from two very different rebbes, different periods of time, different cities, different locales. And I'm going to ask you to hold space for what may seem either something that's difficult or even a contradiction. And then as we go into the practice for the first minute, I'll guide you into that with this as the backdrop. So the first teaching, it's concerning this week's Parsha, Pinchas, is a teaching from the Berdichever Rebbe. Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev lived in Ukraine, 18th century, was one of the main students of the Maggid of Mezerich, who learned the Torah from the Baal Shem Tov. And the verses under discussion come from Numbers 27, 15 to 17. You have it there on the source sheet. Moses spoke to the Eternal, saying, may the Eternal God of the spirits of all flesh, also translated by some, source of the breath of all flesh, Elohei Aruchot, L'kol Basar, appoint someone over the community who shall go out before them and come in before them, who shall take them out and bring them in. So the Eternal's community will not be like sheep that has no shepherd for them. This is at the end of Moses' life, as he has accepted his destiny not to come into the land of Israel. And the Maggid of Mezerich teaches what he calls a basic principle here. What is the basic principle? The essential desire of the human soul is to be in service to and in relationship with God, the source of life, the source of the soul, the source of the ruach here. It is only the body that desires physical pleasures instead. And we all have those physical pleasures that we seek. In truth, though, both the body and the soul are God's works. And just as God has endowed the soul, our spiritual center, our non-physical component, with power for divine service, God could have endowed the body with essentially the same desire. Meaning, anything that I want to do with my body would be in alignment with God's will. I would never feel this inclination to separate, to sense that I'm a separate self, to commit sins, make mistakes. Just like my soul is pure, my body is pure, and together we'll be in this wonderful relationship and live happily ever after. Well, that may have been the way it was designed in the Garden of Eden, but we all know how that ended. So until we can return, and we can return in terms of consciousness, to that space where the body is more in alignment with the soul, at times they could compete for attention, at times. Now here, the Berdichever Rebbe, and for those who have never learned from his Sefer, Kedushat Levi, he is what's called the advocate for Am Yisrael. He's the one who goes to God with all the complaints and all the claims. Like, you've given us a world where there's such complexities and there's so many complications, and then you want us just to do your will. Well, then, really? He's very forthright. So once again, on this basis, like God could have made us where our bodies would be more in alignment with, and in harmony with our soul. So this is what he says. We have a claim. We, the Jewish people, I'm advocating on their behalf. I'm their lawyer, the advocate. We have a claim against the Blessed Holy One to forgive us for our misdeeds. For the Creator, why? It's really, it's like a child telling the parent, well, you put the candy out, then you tell me I can't eat it, and then when I eat it, you tell me, like he says, for the Creator could have given the body the power to yield to being in service to the Blessed One as the soul is. So you have to forgive us when we make a mistake, when we're human, even if we don't intend to make that mistake and we fall for this illusion that we're a separate self. Now, the soul, which desires to be in service to God, is called the spirit, the ruach in this verse, also the neshama in elsewhere. But here in our verse, spirit, as in the expression, the spirit of the eternal has spoken through me. That's in the book of 2 Samuel. I quoted the chapter and verse. So there, the ruach of God, the spirit of the eternal, has spoken through me. So what's that? That's King David at the end of his life. He's proclaiming this. That's his soul talking to him. And the body is called the flesh, the basar. So he says, the Buchdahl concludes, and this is the meaning of Moses' plea, that just as you are the God of the spirits, meaning you are, in fact, of those who desire to be in service to you, God, I really believe you need to also be the God of all flesh. That is the body. He leaves it at that. So I ask you to consider what is being asked of us, because God did not create us the way the Buchdahl would have wished in an ideal world. How do we hold this? A short teaching from the PSSner Rebbe, 20th century Warsaw, Poland. He comments, this is the meaning of Moses's plea for a leader who shall go out before them, lifneihem, and come in before them, lifneihem. Meaning the PSSner believes one who can set out before them, lifneihem, what they need to understand. The PSSner believes that's what Moses meant. Appoint a leader like me, basically, Moses was saying. I made everything clear before the people, who shall also take them out, yotzi'im, and bring them in, yevi'im. Meaning a leader who will be able to bring out their best understanding from within them and lead them, showing how best to use their intelligence safely. That's another feature of this type of shepherd leadership. And then Moses concludes his ask of God. So the Eternal's community will not be a flock that has no shepherd for them, lehem. Well, the verse really did not have to add for them. It could have ended, so the Eternal's community will not be a flock that has no shepherd. Of course it's for them. So now the PSS and the rabbis love, the commentators love when it looks like there's a superfluous word or a phrase, or the word could have been said in a different way that would have been more clear. So now the PSS interprets the extra emphasis placed on the phrase for them means for fear that each person inside themselves not have a shepherd. The shepherd must enter inside, into the depths of each person, and strengthen their faith in their Creator, in the Shekhinah, in God, in the eternal. This is the sign for Moshe this is the third feature of the ultimate leader, that I begin to become, within me, I hear my own unique shepherd. So I would like to suggest and invite you to hold these two teachings I believe this is the answer to the Bodhisattva's uh, complaint or claim against God. Yes, God could have, but God didn't. And it's great and it's wonderful that the Bodhisattva raised the claim because it pushes us, it forces us, it compels us to ask the question, why not? And along comes the Bodhisattva, different place, different time. And I believe how he's answering without intending to answer Dafka the Bodhisattva. This is my argument here. He's really responding to the Bodhisattva that a good leader will in fact give me, when I cultivate spiritual practices, working out my soul and my spirit, so I'm more sensitive to that still small voice. So I do begin to hear the shepherd within me begin to guide me. And then as that happens, I begin to feel this inner serenity. I begin to feel this state of mind, body, heart, soul working together. And in fact, that may be the reason why we were created the way we were, so we can co-create and be engaged in this relationship in an active, in an intentional way. So as we move into our practice for today, our 10 minutes of silence, we can move into ourselves, begin to become aware of what thoughts are moving through you without judgment, just to become aware and then explore like a person on a hike, not really clear to go left or right. Explore your heart. What feelings, what sensations come up for you, even in the embodied experience? So we then can co-create our own Judaism, our own humanhood, our own having been created in the image of the Creator as a mind, body, heart, soul, holistic experience. Let us share as those who have sat with me before my custom, my minhag. Let us begin as we share three cleansing, new, fresh, being breathed into cycles and returning that breath. And then let us sit in silence as we contemplate and ponder God of the spirits of all flesh, the source of all breath in our bodies. And Chavre, I invite you to share with me 3 cycles again of receiving life, receiving breath of life, the spirit of life. Let us receive together with gratitude that this is not Muvan Me'alav, is not ever to be taken for granted. Come breathe with me as we conclude our sit for today. Toda, toda lukulam. Thank you to all of you, precious souls. Chavre, thank you so much. Mamash toda.
Thank you so much, Yiscah. Such beautiful and resonant teaching and practice. I needed that. Thank you so much. Friends, let's turn our attention to Kaddish Yatom, to Mourner's Kaddish. Please put in the chat the names of anybody you're thinking of today. Dear souls who have left this earth plane, who are so present with us in our thoughts and our hearts. And we can gather in the names, be with you in your mourning and your remembering. Touching how precious this life is, and all the ways that there is not a door, but really a window between the living and the dead, that we remain connected. If you're saying Kaddish, you're invited to stand in body or in spirit, to unmute and to join together in the words of Kaddish. Yitkada,
Buchdahl, Yushda, Shane Rabba,
Yamante Vrachutehu,
Mane
Makoteya,
Devara,
Bechayahune,
Kunte,
Hon, the Kadikobe Israel, Vagalamas
Kunte,
Matsaribeke,
Aya,
Eheshame, Rabba Bavara,
Shmi
Lame,
Rabba Baba
Shabbat,
Baba
Harbi, Ramani, Nase, Yitadar,
Asher
Shave,
Rabba,
Lamarshane,
Amaya,
Kadishavara,
Amaya,
Ela, Minko, Birchasta, Bashirata, Nata, Benechimata, Bimru, Amen.
anybody taken
Lama
from
Rabba Mishamai,
God,
Yoko Israel.
according to the divine will.
Kuya
May God's
Seshalom.
sovereignty be
Yoko
established in our
Israel.
lifetime.
Amen.
May the entire house of Israel, may God's great name be praised through eternity. May God, who ordains harmony in the universe, grant peace to us and to all Israel. And let us say, Amen.
Amen.
Tevel, in the
Amen.
room.
Until
May their memories be a blessing,
we freeze.
and may all who are mourning be held in loving support.
Amen.
Can be seated, everyone.
Slowly declaring.
Let's turn our attention back to our dear Yiscah. If you have a question, please write in bold in the chat question, so it's easy to see. And you can share reflections to what came up in your practice. Perhaps as people are writing, Yiscah, I'd love to begin with a question of my own. This text is so evocative, and I hear the Berdichever Rebbe's almost a plea, be also the God of the flesh. Please. And I'm wondering what you hear in that. I hear it as a bit pleading. What do you think he was? I don't mean to project onto him. What do you think he was struggling with? But why is it hard for us? What happens in that space split, that disconnection between what our neshamas know and have access to, and where the body can, not always, but can really steer us in oppositional directions.
That's the question. And in my ideal world, if I was sitting at the table with the Bodhisattva, and I would try to attempt even to answer, he would say, Yiscah, just be quiet, be patient, because I want to bring you into the conversation. First, I'm pushing back on our creator. And in Hebrew, the word is to'en, which is a legal, like he was the lawyer he was our advocate in the court, in the Beit Din Lamala, and he was arguing on behalf of us. And I could see him then answering, well, this is why our holy master, the Baal Shem Tov, came into the world to empower or ennoble us. I'm more comfortable with the word ennoble us, to remind us, notwithstanding the poverty and the disease and the pogroms, it was not exactly Ukraine in the 18th century was not the ideal getaway vacation spot. Yet spiritually, it was like fertile soil for potential to grow. And that's really, I believe, what the PSS, what the Bodhisattva is doing is coming in from the back door, if I may, to remind us we're not victims. This is the way we're created. And yes, you can ask the question because thank God we have an answer. And that's called spiritual practice, spiritual fitness, the way we have physical fitness. Today, we call it mindfulness, living with intention, and devoting a life, or at least moments in the course of a day that make up a life, as I like to say, to really trying to sense our closeness to our deeper self, rather than feel we have to be somebody in order to be accepted or to be included. There's a lot of behavioral expectations in the world, surely in the Jewish world, surely those who explore and live any type of traditional halachic life. There's the right way, the wrong way. And as I point out in the introduction in my book, sometimes we can get so busy with doing it right for fear of doing it wrong, we forget about the source of all of this. And that is the spiritual teachings, the Hasidism, the neo-Hasidism that the PSS or Heschel or Buber and Hillel Zeitlin brought to the forefront, and then brought that to the States. And then we have the others who followed him to renew, like Reb Zalman, the renewal of honoring the spirit. But we need the body to do that in order for it to be whole. So that is the answer to his claim.
Beautiful. There's a question here from Sarah. I'm struck in the 18th century teaching, the Rebbe points to the split between the soul and the body. In meditation, most of us struggle against mind in its seeming attempt to be our authoritarian ruler. Is the body seen non-dually, as one with the mind in this teaching? And if we anchor in the body as we meditate, oops, I just lost it. How do we not then anchor also in the mind? So sort of this question of where is it framed as dual? Where is it really integrated?
Sarah, yeah, you ask such an important question, because without cultivating any type of spiritual practices, spiritual sensitivity, spiritual awareness, our default as an animal, as a species, we share something very in common with the rest of the animals, and that is the need to survive. We have needs to survive, the eating and the drinking and the resting, eliminating waste, procreating. This has nothing to do with living a spiritual life, because the animals around us also are doing that. So we don't have to cultivate eating or drinking or resting. We know when we're tired. We know when we're hungry. However, we can elevate it beyond. We can raise it up so it's not like all the other animals. And as much as I love my garden, I also love animals. I'm an animal lover. However, I'm an animal, but the higher me is not. The higher me is a soul, or a composite of mind, body, heart, and soul. So if we just move through life without intention, without awareness of how we're speaking, what are we thinking, what are we doing, the body will probably, in most cases, win out over the spirit. And this is where the mind, though, because you asked about the mind. I forget the name of the person in Canada, a contemporary, who said, I first learned this from Rob James, actually, many, many years ago. The mind is a wonderful servant and a terrible master. So if we live a life only by the mind can convince us that what we think is good is bad, and what we think is bad is good. It even says in the Talmud that we can rationalize 150 ways. Kuf nun, that it says that's the gematria for 150, that is sheretz, which is an unclean, tameh type of creepy crawly, like a rodent, and it says specifically it's tameh, it's impure, we can convince ourselves 150 ways that it's not. And that's by using the mind when it's not connected to a devotion, to a commitment to the relationship with God. And we've seen in history, brilliant people who are ruled by their minds have committed atrocities. So the Jewish, especially when we lean on the mystics, going back to the Zohar, the whole purpose of the Zohar is unity between the transcendental and the immanent. We can, but it takes work. It's avodat ruchanit. We translate it as spiritual practice. It's really the work. And we love to work. We were created to work when the work has meaning.
Thank you. Harris has a question. Is it necessary for life to be difficult or challenging, as it was in Hasidic communities, in the Baal Shem Tov, for spirituality to really grow?
Okay. Yes and no. How's that for a nice Jewish answer? Yes, difficulties, or I would feel more comfortable responding to like challenges, did not only occur though during the Baal Shem Tov time, during his time. It's occurring right now, only the challenges are different. See, the challenges in Europe and in much of the Mideast, with the Sephardic and the Mizrahi Jews especially, the challenge is more of a physical one. It was one of hunger and disease and life and death matters. However, since World War II especially, and since the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948, where whether one moves here or not and makes Aliyah or not, one can. And just knowing that one lives differently in the diaspora, there's been a sharp increase, like this amazing increase of the physical standard of living. So it's come at a price, though, because that's also a challenge. The challenge now is to realize I don't control everything. When a farmer planted a few seeds and prayed for some type of crop that could be yielded, it was clear that the farmer didn't control everything. Today, though, we fall into this illusion, and this is the main challenge that rubs up against or locks horns with cultivating more of a spiritually predominant or focused life, is we need to let go of this illusion that we really control a lot more. Like, look at me, look at my degrees, look at my business, look at my books, look at my family, look at that, look at me. It's about me. And it's very, of course, egocentric. And it pulls us away, not the success, but the attitude towards the success pulls us away from the source of the success, which we need spiritual practice to cultivate. So I do believe, though, like in track and field, the hurdler, when there's the day comes when the coach raises the hurdle, and the hurdler says, "Why are you raising the hurdle?" "Because I want you to be a better hurdler." So why do we have these challenges? I believe, and I would invite all of you to explore this if you don't believe it. that it really is meant for our best. There really is something that when growth comes from discomfort, whether it's physical, and I would not wish what was going on in Ukraine for anybody. However, people like the Baal Shem Tov took it and used it and elevated it. And we can do the same today with different challenges. They're more mental or intellectual challenges, not physical.
Thank you. There's a question from Racheli. I'm conflicted to listen to these teachings, knowing the great amount of transphobic views by those who claim to be the heirs of these teachings.
I just don't know how to respond to that other than these teachings give us the ideal way to live. That doesn't mean everyone who teaches it lives the ideal way. So I'm not understanding what the teachings and the descendants of the teachings, how that connects to any phobia, any discrimination, any bigotry. I mean, transphobia is just one among many that where people are hurt and people are shamed and people feel excluded. But that's anyone can do anything with anything. You can take these beautiful two golden nuggets, and why do people do bad things with it? Because of lack of self-esteem, insecurity, too much focus on the ego, maybe feeling, I don't know, I'm not in that, I don't flock with those people, but I imagine something's going on that's really broken inside. However, I don't believe, though, the teachings themselves cause that. I think there's other factors. And I'm not even sure there's a right or a wrong here. So that's the best I can offer.
And I think that speaks to so much of what your work broadly is, what the work at IJS is.
Oh,
Other teachers of people who mine the nuggets of this beautiful Hasidic and neo-Hasidic, a sort of this retranslated tradition, drawing much deep wisdom and practice and bringing it into the realities of contemporary life so we can speak to our souls and speak to this moment. And how you do that such genuine, lived open-heartedness.
thank you.
Maybe just one last piece. We were talking in this relationship between body and spirit, or body and mind, all of it. We were talking about challenges and that rub of difficulty. I wonder if you can touch on, as we close, the pleasantness and pleasure and delight in the body, through the body, and how that can be a vehicle for the neshama.
Oh, yes. Friday night, I'll give you one example of how I personally embody this experience of this inner serenity in a mind, body, heart, soul way. So I have my own tradition. After I light the Shabbat lights, I look at the pictures of my parents, may they rest in peace, my grandparents, may they rest in peace, and even some of my great-grandparents. And I go up to each one and wish them a Shabbat Shalom, wherever they may be. And before I go out to anyone, or before people are coming over to have dinner, I sit in my garden with a glass of wine. This is before Kiddush. It's not making Kiddush yet. But I sit with a glass of wine. I look at the sky, and I intentionally seek within my body the sensation of Shabbat. And it's almost where I don't feel my body. I'm so aware during the week. I swim a lot. I swim about 4 or 5 days a week. I'm doing laps. So I'm very involved with breath awareness when I'm swimming, and I'm going here, moving there, whatever. I'm very aware that I have a body. This moment, though, the embodied sensation is that I'm not feeling my body. And that's in a strange way, a very Jewish rabbinic way, I guess. That's also embodied, that I'm not feeling that. But not because I'm not paying attention. It's dafka because I am paying attention. There's just this flow of energy moving through me with all my relatives before me, and of course my children and grandchildren following me, and sitting in Israel and Jerusalem with a glass of wine. And it could be for 1 minute, it could be for 5 minutes, doesn't have to be for 3 hours. So I would invite everyone to yes, honor the challenge, and then honor the serenity and the harmony and the joy and the peace that comes with that. It's yeah.
What a beautiful practice. I think I want to
Yeah.
adopt it, if I may.
Please.
Oh, thank you so much, Yiscah.
You're
And
welcome. You're welcome.
wishing you ongoing goodness.
Yeah. Thank you.
Book, and may peace come to Yerushalayim and to the whole
Amen.
region very, very soon.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you again, Harry.
Thank you to you.
Sorry, go ahead, Yiscah.
No, thank you to you for guiding us today and providing the Masgaret, the framework, and yes, to Harry for, of course, being with us on this journey tonight or today.
Beautiful. Thank you, everyone. Wishing you goodness. Be well.